A cheerful kid, with a dad who's all serious but stands for what's right, and a mom overflowing with love and kindness. Life's pretty good, well, not for long. See, his dad, just a baron trying to make ends meet, goes and sells his mom off to some big shot in the government. And just like that, everything changes for the kid. As time passes, the child's world crumbles around him. With his mother gone, he feels lonelier than ever, and fear grips him tightly like a vice. Each day brings new torment as his father, now drowning in drink, unleashes his wrath upon the innocent boy. Nights are the worst, when the darkness seems to amplify his terror. As his father stumbles into the room, the child cowers in a corner, praying for safety. But safety is a distant dream. His father's words are like daggers, cutting deep into his fragile soul. He forbids the child from even looking at him, accusing him of having eyes like a whore, a cruel insult that pierces the child's heart. He mocks and bullies him relentlessly, cruelly suggesting that the child is not even his own, that his mother betrayed him with another man. And so, the child endures endless mistreatment at the hands of the one who should protect him most. Once upon a time, the house echoed with giggles and happy shouts, but now it's a different story. Instead of laughter, there are tears, and instead of joy, there's pain. The little child, once so full of life, now bears the brunt of his father's rage. Each day brings fresh bruises, each night is haunted by the memory of cruel words and harsh blows. His body is a canvas of suffering, marked by countless wounds that tell a tale of cruelty and despair. And worst of all, he faces it all alone, with no one to comfort him or dry his tears. One day, after 3 long years of absence, his mother returns. The child's heart leaps with joy at the sight of her, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, their string of bad luck has finally come to an end. He rushes to her, his arms open wide, ready to envelop her in the tightest hug imaginable. 3 years is a lifetime for a child, and the sheer happiness he feels in this moment knows no bounds. And then, his father enters the scene. His face lights up with a happiness that's been absent for far too long. He moves towards his wife, his strides filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. He pulls her close, holding her tightly as if afraid she might vanish into thin air. In a flood of emotion, he expresses his gratitude for her return, his voice thick with the fear he had harbored, the fear of never seeing her again. In this moment, amidst the warmth of their reunion, there's a glimmer of hope for brighter days ahead. But little does the child know, this heartwarming reunion is just the beginning of a tragic journey he never could have imagined. The twists and turns of fate are about to hurl him into a world of darkness and despair, a world where even his wildest nightmares couldn't have prepared him. As he stands there, wrapped in the warmth of his parents' embrace, oblivious to the storm that's about to engulf him, the ominous clouds of tragedy gather on the horizon, casting a shadow over his unsuspecting heart. What lies ahead is a tale of sorrow and hardship, a journey through the depths of despair that will test his resilience and courage in ways he never thought possible. And so, the stage is set for the unfolding of a tragedy that will leave no heart untouched. Weeks later, the mother sits by the window, her hand gently caressing her swelling belly, a clear sign of pregnancy. She notices the child watching her and beckons him closer, inviting him to feel the life growing within her. With a mixture of wonder and joy, he approaches, his small hand resting on her rounded stomach, his face lit up with happiness. But their tender moment is shattered by the arrival of his father, stumbling in with the stench of alcohol clinging to him like a dark cloud. His mother, ever hopeful, reminds him of his promise to abstain from drinking, but he erupts in a fit of rage, smashing his bottle against the floor. Accusations fly like arrows from his lips, branding his wife with hurtful words, accusing her of infidelity and betrayal. He pushes her away violently, his anger palpable as he spews venomous insults, calling her vile names and wishing her harm. In the midst of the chaos, the boy intervenes, pleading with his father to stop, but his efforts only earn him a cruel shove that sends him crashing into the wall, the pain radiating from his young skull. Ignoring his son's cries, the father drags his wife into the depths of their home, locking the door behind them. From outside, the child can only listen helplessly as the sounds of his mother's suffering echo through the walls, her cries a haunting melody of despair. He pounds on the door, his fists bruised and bleeding, but his pleas fall on deaf ears as the violence rages on unchecked within. Lost in a whirlwind of emotions, the child finds himself trapped in a labyrinth of despair, with no clear path to freedom. Surrounded by an oppressive darkness that seems to suffocate his very soul, he searches desperately for an escape route, even though deep down he fears it may not exist at all. With each passing moment, his hope dwindles, replaced by a gnawing sense of helplessness that threatens to consume him entirely. In his darkest moments, he dares to entertain the notion that perhaps the darkness itself might show him mercy, swallowing him whole and ending his suffering once and for all. It's a desperate plea born out of sheer desperation, a whispered prayer to a universe that seems indifferent to his plight. But still, he clings to the faint glimmer of hope that somewhere, somehow, there might still be a way out of the darkness that threatens to engulf him. Finally gaining entry into the room after his father's departure, the child rushes to his mother's side, his heart pounding with fear. He sees her coughing up blood, unable to speak, and a wave of terror washes over him. He pleads with her to hold on, promising that he'll get help, his young voice trembling with desperation. With tears streaming down his face, he begs her to stay strong, to not leave him alone again in this cruel world. Stepping out into the night, the cold blades of grass prick his bare feet, leaving tiny wounds that go unnoticed in the shadow of his overwhelming anxiety. Every step forward feels like a battle against the suffocating darkness that threatens to swallow him whole. But he pushes on, driven by the urgency of his mother's condition. Arriving in town, he makes a beeline for the nearest medicine shop, his heart pounding in his chest. With a quick glance around to ensure no one is watching, he snatches a leaf from a nearby plant, hoping it holds the remedy his mother so desperately needs. But his attempt at stealth is thwarted when the shop owner catches sight of him. With a shout, the owner gives chase, commanding him to stop, but the child's fear gives him wings as he flees, stumbling over stones and sustaining injuries along the way. Despite the pain, he refuses to give up, pushing himself to the brink of exhaustion as he races against time to save his mother. Every ounce of strength is summoned as he fights his way through the darkness, his thoughts consumed by the fear of losing the only family he has left. And then, just when he thinks he can't bear any more, he sees it, the flickering glow of flames dancing against the night sky. His heart sinks as he realizes that his home is engulfed in fire, his sanctuary consumed by the merciless blaze. It's not just the loss of his home that fills him with despair, but the crushing weight of loneliness as he faces the prospect of being left alone in the world once again. In the midst of the chaos, amidst the flames and the darkness, the child's name is Aseph, a mere 5 years old, barely surviving in a world that shows no mercy. As the boy grows older, he finds himself trapped in a cycle of begging, a life dictated by the darkness that has always been his companion. With no other options available to him, he extends his hand in silent plea, hoping for a glimmer of kindness from passers-by. On this particular day, a man takes pity on him and offers a small sum of money. But to the boy, it's not enough to ease the gnawing hunger in his belly, and he dares to voice his discontent. Angered by the boy's ingratitude, the man snatches back the alms, chastising him for his lack of appreciation. With a heavy heart, the boy watches as the man walks away, taking with him the promise of sustenance. Desperate to reclaim what little he had, the boy rushes after the man, his pleas falling on deaf ears. He falls to his knees, his voice trembling with desperation as he begs for mercy. And in a moment of unexpected grace, the man relents, offering the boy food instead of money. But despite this temporary reprieve, the boy finds himself unable to break free from the grip of darkness that holds him captive. Instead of seeking out ways to overcome his circumstances, he resigns himself to a life of selling whatever he can in order to stave off starvation. It's during one of his begging excursions that he encounters her, a woman whose presence seems to illuminate the cold night air. With a gentle voice, she encourages him to lift his head, and as their eyes meet, she sees not just a beggar, but a young man with untapped potential. And this woman, none other than Gracie Randell, will become an unexpected beacon of hope in the boy's otherwise bleak existence. But little does he know, her kindness will set into motion a series of events that will forever alter the course of his life. Gracia, now the de facto leader of the Randell family following the Marquis's demise, spots the boy amidst the bustling streets, her keen instincts drawn to his plight like a moth to a flame. Weeks pass, and Gracia takes the boy under her wing, adopting him into the Randell household. One day, she accompanies him to a jewelry shop in search of a ring. Trying on different designs, Gracia seeks validation from those around her, basking in the compliments showered upon her. But it's the boy, always by her side, who points out another ring, suggesting it would suit her better. To their surprise, the store owner reveals that the preferred ring is already spoken for. However, their disappointment is short-lived when a distinguished figure enters the shop, offering to relinquish ownership of the coveted ring. It's none other than the Duchess herself, her regal presence commanding attention as she graciously insists that Gracia accept the gift. As the Duchess admires the boy standing beside Gracia, she bestows compliments upon him, drawing Gracia's attention to the undeniable charm he exudes. Seized by a sudden pang of jealousy, Gracia watches as the boy, with practiced politeness, greets the Duchess with a kiss on her hand, inquiring after her well-being. Unbeknownst to the boy, his adoption into the Randell family was not born out of maternal affection, but rather from Gracia's twisted desire to possess him completely, to mold him into her own image of perfection. And so, as they leave the jewelry shop, the boy remains oblivious to the tangled web of emotions swirling around him, his innocence shielded from the darker motives lurking beneath the surface. Back at home, she punishes him, by tying him with a rope and releasing deadly lashes of cane. This brings numerous wounds to his bare body. He doesn't cry out, but she tells him he has to cry out and beg her. She calls him a naughty boy and tells him that he's making her angry. That is how the boy became for her dirty and ugly pleasures. Once again he has fallen into a stained darkness that was marred by violence. She looks at his crying and miserable face and tells him that it gives her ecstasy. She tells him that she'll continue to love him. She asks if he feels that way for her too, but he refused to reply. She whips him harder, forcing the reply out of his mouth. As the pain of his torn flesh seeps into the darkness of his existence, Aseph finds himself engulfed in endless nights of sleeplessness. Despite the horrors he's endured, a flicker of hope remains alive within him, a desire to cling to life even as he sinks deeper into despair. Surrounded by the cold, unyielding walls of his suffering, he feels his very essence growing colder with each passing moment. In the depths of his anguish, Aseph learns the true meaning of surrender, his spirit broken and his will shattered. He vows never to beg again, never to shed another tear, and never to place his trust or dependence on anyone ever again. With a heart hardened by pain and betrayal, he sets out on a path of darkness and revenge. One fateful night, he finds himself face to face with the source of his torment, the woman who has wrought so much suffering upon him. With a chilling calmness, he approaches her, his hands steady as he tightens his grip around her throat. In a moment of pure, unadulterated rage, he snuffs out her life, ending her reign of terror once and for all. As he watches the light fade from her eyes, a twisted sense of satisfaction washes over him. To Aseph, her struggle and suffering before death are a thing of beauty, a testament to the power he now holds over life and death. In a macabre display of reverence, he invokes the blessings of Premesa upon her, a final act of cruelty disguised as mercy. But amidst the darkness of his newfound power, Aseph feels no sense of guilt or remorse. The boy who once yearned for love and acceptance has been transformed into a villain, consumed by his own thirst for vengeance. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the world, a young girl's tears fall freely as she reads a novel. Moved by the story's emotional depth, she wonders why she's crying so much over a mere work of fiction. Little does she know, the pain and suffering contained within its pages echo the silent cries of countless souls, each one a reflection of the human experience in all its complexity and tragedy. It all began about a year ago, when she stumbled upon The Crest of God in a quaint little bookshop. Drawn in by the intriguing title, she couldn't resist the urge to delve into its pages, curious to uncover the secrets held within. But it wasn't just the fantastical world depicted in the book that captured her imagination, it was the raw emotion and intense drama that left her both anxious and captivated. As she reads on, she's transported into a world of pain and torment, where Aseph, the protagonist, is subjected to unspeakable cruelty at the hands of Gracia. Despite the agony he endures, he's forced to profess his love for her, only to be met with more torture and suffering. It's a gut-wrenching tale that haunts her dreams, tormenting her with the echoes of Aseph's agonized cries. One night, she awakens with a start, her heart racing as she struggles to shake off the lingering effects of her nightmares. Was it the book that had seeped into her subconscious, or was there something more sinister at play? For months, the miserable boy continues to invade her dreams, his anguished pleas echoing in the recesses of her mind. And then, one night, he appears before her, standing alone in the darkness, a silent specter of her imagination. Confused and frightened, she confronts him, demanding to know why he haunts her dreams when he's nothing more than a character in a novel. But he remains silent, his eyes filled with a haunting sadness that pierces her soul. In a desperate attempt to break through the barrier between them, she calls out his name, Elisa. But her words fall on deaf ears, lost in the void of his silent anguish. As he staggers and falls, she feels a pang of empathy for the lonely figure before her. But she's also filled with frustration, angry at his foolish insistence on waiting for someone who will never return. Moving closer, she reaches out to him, longing to offer him comfort and warmth. But there's no way for her to bridge the gap between reality and fiction, leaving her feeling powerless and alone in the face of his silent suffering. Once again, she awakens from the depths of her dreams, the lines between reality and fiction blurred in the dim light of dawn. With a heavy sigh, she rises from her bed and reaches for the book that has plagued her thoughts for so long. The Crest of God lies innocently in her hands, its cover a silent witness to the turmoil within its pages. As she flips through the familiar passages, the memories of Aseph's tragic journey flood back to her with painful clarity. From a boy subjected to unspeakable violence to a villain stripped of all emotion, his transformation haunts her every waking moment. What began as a desperate yearning for love has twisted into a bitter disdain for the kindness of others, leaving Aseph a shell of his former self. With a heavy heart, she places the book back in its rightful place, tucked away in the depths of her drawer. But even as she tries to distance herself from its haunting narrative, the memory of Aseph's suffering lingers like a ghost in the recesses of her mind. In the world of fiction, villains often serve as little more than foils for the main protagonist, their existence defined by the shadows they cast upon the hero's journey. And for Aseph, his fate seems sealed, condemned to a tragic and miserable end that looms ever closer with each turn of the page. The weight of Aseph's despair bears down on her soul, threatening to crush her under the weight of his suffering. It's a burden she carries alone, unable to shake the feeling of helplessness that grips her heart whenever his memory comes to mind. At school, her friend notices the subtle shift in her demeanor, the shadows that linger in the corners of her eyes. But she brushes off their concern with a forced smile, unwilling to burden them with the weight of her own struggles. Alone in her room, she finds herself drawn once again to the book that has become both a source of fascination and fear. With trembling hands, she opens the drawer and retrieves the Crest of God, its pages whispering secrets that she's both desperate and afraid to uncover. A year has passed since she last dared to delve into its depths, and yet the pull of its narrative remains as strong as ever. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, she begins to read, knowing deep down that she may never be able to escape the grip of its haunting tale. As she turns the pages of the book, the tragic tale of Aseph unfolds before her eyes. It's a story of love and loss, of betrayal and despair, woven into the fabric of his tumultuous existence. In his darkest hour, Aseph finds himself begging Elisa not to leave him, his heart consumed by a love he could never fully grasp. She, the only woman he ever dared to love, offers him apologies tinged with sorrow, gently explaining that their paths must diverge. Her words cut deep, leaving Aseph with a gaping wound in his heart, a wound that festers with each passing moment. But the final blow comes when Elisa reveals that she is Alchester's partner, her hand intertwined with his. In that moment, Aseph's world shatters, his fragile heart torn asunder by the cruel twist of fate. Jealousy and rage consume him, twisting his once gentle soul into something dark and twisted. Driven by his despair, Aseph makes a fateful decision, trading his very soul for a false crest in a desperate bid to win back Elisa's affections. But his transformation is short-lived, cut short by the hand of Alchester himself. In a painful and violent end, Aseph meets his demise, his broken heart unable to bear the weight of his shattered dreams. As Aseph's life fades into darkness, so too do the hopes and dreams of those who once believed in him. Even Premesa, the god of love, curses his soul, condemning him to a fate worse than death. Meanwhile, Alchester, the one who took Aseph's life, is hailed as a hero, a king who vanquished the devil himself. The streets fill with jubilant crowds, celebrating the triumph of good over evil and wishing the couple a lifetime of happiness. And so, Aseph's tale comes to a close, his grief and suffering finally laid to rest in death's embrace. But his legacy lives on, a cautionary tale of love lost and the perils of jealousy unchecked. As she reflects on Aseph's tragic fate, a wave of pity washes over her soul. How could someone end up in such a wretched state? She's at a loss for what to do, feeling powerless in the face of such cruelty and suffering. The boundaries between reason and emotion blur, leaving only the echoes of a grieving soul to fill her ears. Lost in her thoughts, she suddenly hears a voice calling out for help. Without hesitation, she promises to save him, to stand by his side no matter what. And as she drifts off to sleep, a sense of hope fills her heart, a belief that somehow, someway, things will be different this time. And then, as if by some miracle, she finds herself transported into the world of Aseph once more. But this time, she's not a mere observer, she's an active participant, with the power to influence the course of his destiny. As Aseph faces the same choices he made before, she watches with bated breath, hoping against hope that he'll find the strength and courage to pursue his desires. With each decision he makes, she silently urges him on, willing him to seize the opportunities that lie before him. But even as she hopes for the best, she can't shake the feeling of impending doom that hangs over them like a dark cloud. The weight of Aseph's fate bears down on her shoulders, threatening to crush her under its unbearable burden. And then, in a blink of an eye, it's over. The story reaches its intense finale, leaving her breathless and teary-eyed. As she wipes away her tears, she can't help but feel a sense of closure, a recognition that sometimes, even the most tragic of tales must come to an end. With a heavy heart, she bids farewell to Aseph and his world, knowing that his story will always hold a special place in her heart. And as she drifts off to sleep once more, she carries with her the memory of his suffering and the hope that, somehow, he'll find peace in the end. As she awakens in a strange land, confusion clouds her mind. Where is she? What is happening? She scans her surroundings, trying to make sense of her new reality. And then it hits her, she's now Elzay Tiathe, a character from the very book she was reading. Before she can fully process this surreal turn of events, the door bursts open, and a girl rushes in, calling her sister. She's engulfed in a warm embrace, the girl urging her to go back to sleep, still feeling groggy from the early hour. But she can't shake the feeling of disorientation. This can't be real, can it? Despite her confusion, she tries to play along, not wanting to alarm her newfound sister. But deep down, she knows something isn't right. The memories of her life as Elzay Tiathe are still fresh in her mind, vivid and unyielding. Yet here she is, living a life that feels simultaneously familiar and foreign. She reaches out to her sister, asking about their mother and their childhood antics. But even as she speaks, doubts gnaw at her mind. Is this really her life now? Or is she trapped inside the pages of the book, living out someone else's story? As she struggles to make sense of her new reality, she recalls a pivotal scene from the book, the moment when Elisa reveals she's Alchester's partner. But there's a glaring discrepancy. Elisa never had a twin sister in the story. Could this be a clue to her predicament? Is she truly inside the novel, or is there something else at play? Lost in a whirlwind of uncertainty, she can't help but wonder, what happened to her? And more importantly, how can she find her way back to the world she knows? With each passing moment, the line between fiction and reality blurs, leaving her trapped in a labyrinth of her own making. The scene unfolds with Elzay and Elisa nestled in bed, their peaceful slumber shattered by a piercing scream. Startled awake, Elzay frantically asks what's wrong, realizing she must have dozed off without realizing it. But as she looks around, the familiar surroundings confirm that she's still here, trapped in this surreal world that feels more real than any dream. Elisa's frantic movements draw her attention, and she watches in confusion as her sister tugs at her dress, revealing a strange crest emblazoned on her chest. Shocked and embarrassed, Elzay hurriedly covers herself, demanding to know how such a thing could have appeared out of nowhere. But Elisa's nonchalant demeanor only adds to Elzay's bewilderment. Why is her sister acting so familiar and forward with her? And when did this crest appear? Before she can make sense of it all, Elisa darts off to fetch their father, leaving Elzay alone with her thoughts. And then he arrives, Elzay Tiathe, the man responsible for Aseph Randell's suffering. The warmth and affection he shows towards Elzay only serve to deepen her distress. How can she reconcile the love and care he offers with the atrocities he committed in Aseph's life? As her father embraces her, congratulating her on this unexpected milestone, Elzay's mind races with conflicting emotions. Her sister's suggestion of a celebration only adds to her turmoil, the thought of reveling in a life built on the ruins of another's suffering almost unbearable. But it's her father's mention of the god's crest that brings Elzay's fears to the surface. In this world, the appearance of a crest signifies the existence of a soulmate, a concept that fills Elzay with dread. If Aseph were to learn of her newfound status, the consequences would be catastrophic. Desperate to avoid a disaster, Elzay implores her father not to seek out her potential soulmate, fearing the chaos it would unleash. And to her relief, her father agrees, promising to keep her secret safe and sound. But as he prepares to leave, Elzay's resolve wavers, a small glimmer of hope flickering to life within her. If this world truly belongs to Aseph, if he's the one who summoned her here with the crest, then perhaps there's a reason she's been brought here. With a newfound determination, she calls her father back, ready to make a request that could change everything. Her father's reaction to her mention of Aseph catches her off guard. The mere utterance of his name seems to stir something within him, prompting him to inquire further. When she confirms that she's indeed referring to Marquis Aseph Randell, his surprise is palpable. He probes deeper, asking if she wants him to investigate whether Aseph bears the same crest as her, a question she answers with a hesitant nod. As her father absorbs this revelation, her sister's confusion is evident. She demands to know when Elzay and Aseph crossed paths and why she was kept in the dark. But their father intervenes, gently taking Elzay's hands in his own. He confesses that he had no inkling of her feelings for Aseph but assures her that he understands now. With a solemn promise to investigate discreetly, he offers her reassurance, reminding her that he's never denied her anything before. Days pass, filled with anticipation and anxiety, until her father returns with news. But it's not the outcome she had hoped for. Sitting together, he delivers the verdict: Aseph Randell does not possess the god's crest. Her heart sinks at the revelation, disappointment washing over her like a wave crashing against the shore. Her father tries to soften the blow, assuring her that the power of the crest is far greater than she imagines. He promises to help her find her soulmate, his words intended to offer comfort but ringing hollow in her ears. With each attempt to lift her spirits, her sadness only deepens. Why does his well-meaning encouragement feel more like a cruel curse, chaining her to a fate she never asked for. In the midst of her despair, she can't help but wonder, what if Aseph was her soulmate all along? And if not him, then who? With each passing moment, the answers seem to slip further from her grasp, leaving her adrift in a sea of uncertainty. But one thing remains certain: her quest for love is far from over. In this world, the crest is more than just a symbol, it's a divine blessing, bestowed upon two individuals destined to share a love that transcends time and space. Each pair of crests is as unique as the souls they bind together, signifying a bond that goes beyond mere mortal understanding. For Elzay, the appearance of her crest marks the beginning of a journey, a quest to find her soulmate, her true companion in this vast and mysterious world. But as days pass and her fever refuses to break, doubts gnaw at Elzay's heart. If Aseph isn't her soulmate, then why was she brought here? What purpose does she serve in this strange and unfamiliar land? With Cordia, the event marking the beginning of adulthood, approaching, the pressure mounts. Elzay knows that on this day, her soulmate's crest should appear alongside hers. But if Aseph isn't the one, then who is? In a desperate bid to unravel the mystery of her crest, Elzay pens a letter to Cecilia Tyros, a young lady from the Tyros family known for her vivacious charm. Could Cecilia be the one destined to be her companion? With the letter sealed and entrusted to a maid, Elzay can only hope for a favorable outcome. As she navigates this unfamiliar world, Elzay finds solace in the company of Sia, a maid who has become a trusted friend. Despite Sia's stern demeanor, Elzay appreciates her unwavering support and guidance. And as she wanders the grounds of her new home, she can't help but marvel at the beauty that surrounds her, each sight and sound a reminder of the wonders of this world. But amidst the beauty and tranquility, a sense of unease lingers. The wind whispers secrets, and Elzay can't shake the feeling that someone, or something, is watching her. And then, as if summoned by the very breeze itself, he appears before her, Aseph, the man whose presence haunts her dreams and whose fate is inexplicably intertwined with her own. As their eyes meet, Elzay is confronted with a truth she can no longer deny: their destinies are irrevocably linked, bound together by the threads of fate. And as Cordia draws near, the stage is set for a revelation that will change their lives forever. They stand face to face in the enchanting garden, an unexpected encounter unfolding amidst the whispering leaves and blooming flowers. Elzay finds herself swept away by the moment, her thoughts racing as she takes in Aseph's presence. Finally, Aseph breaks the silence, his voice tentative yet sincere. He confesses his surprise at finding someone else in the garden, explaining that he sought solitude amidst its beauty. With a hint of uncertainty, he asks if his presence disturbs her, his gaze searching hers for reassurance. Elzay remains silent, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. As Aseph continues to speak, she struggles to find her voice, her thoughts consumed by the surreal nature of their meeting. She offers a feeble apology, her words faltering as she attempts to explain her distracted state. Their conversation meanders, Aseph commenting on the garden's beauty and expressing his desire to stay a while longer. Elzay's heart flutters at his words, a mix of nervousness and excitement bubbling within her. With a small nod, she invites him to join her, adjusting her position to make room for him on the bench. As Aseph settles beside her, Elzay steals a moment to study him, his piercing blue eyes, his sun-kissed hair, the faint mole beneath his eye. He is real, tangible, a living embodiment of the character she had only ever known through the pages of a novel. The realization washes over her, filling her with a sense of wonder and disbelief. Summoning her courage, Elzay calls out his name, her voice barely above a whisper. Aseph's reaction is one of surprise, his brows furrowing in confusion. How could she know his name? Have they crossed paths before? Elzay offers a shy apology, assuring him that they are strangers in this world. But before the conversation can delve deeper, Aseph surprises her by taking her hand in his, pressing a gentle kiss to her trembling fingers. His gesture is one of reverence, a silent acknowledgement of the connection that seems to bind them together. In that moment, amidst the beauty of the garden and the warmth of Aseph's touch, Elzay feels a sense of belonging she has never known before. Fate has brought them together, weaving a tapestry of destiny that defies explanation. And as they sit side by side, their hands intertwined, Elzay can't help but feel that this meeting is just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Perhaps it's the icy touch of his hand against hers, or the way he speaks her name with such familiarity, but as Aseph stands before her, Elzay feels a wave of sorrow wash over her. Tears well up in her eyes, betraying the turmoil within her heart. Aseph, taken aback by her sudden display of emotion, questions if she is unwell, urging her to seek medical attention. But Elzay brushes off his concern, insisting that it's nothing more than a speck of dust in her eye. As she turns to leave, Aseph reaches out, his grip firm yet gentle. He implores her to stay, assuring her that she doesn't have to divulge her troubles if she's not ready. With a tender touch, he brushes a tear from her cheek, causing a soft glow to emanate from her skin. Her heart races at the contact, a mixture of pain and longing swirling within her. Concerned, Aseph wonders if she suffers from a heart condition, attributing her discomfort to the residual effects of holy power. Elzay, unwilling to reveal the truth, offers a vague explanation, insisting it's merely a reaction to the healing light. Though Aseph seems skeptical, he respects her privacy, opting not to pry further. But how can she confess the truth, that she already belongs to another, fated partner? As Aseph gently massages her stiffened hand, he shares memories of his late mother, his words tinged with bittersweet nostalgia. Elzay listens intently, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. Yet amidst the tender moment, Aseph's compliments catch her off guard. He praises the delicate warmth of her hand, his words laced with a hint of admiration. Elzay's mind races with uncertainty. Could he be attempting to charm her? Before she can dwell on the thought, Aseph's earnest plea interrupts her musings. He begs her to stay, his eyes pleading for her companionship. Elzay hesitates, torn between the pull of her heart and the weight of her secret. But as Aseph gazes at her with unwavering sincerity, she finds herself unable to resist his plea. With a heavy heart, she acquiesces, knowing that with each passing moment, the bond between them deepens, ensnaring her further in a web of tangled emotions. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.